Well, good afternoon and welcome to UCEA YouTube Live. This is Scott Richardson, graduate research assistant and doctoral student at UCEA headquarters at the University of Virginia. I'm here today to interview Joanne Marshall as a part of her candidacy for the UCEA Executive Committee. Today, listeners will be hearing from Joanne Marshall, associate professor in the School of Education at Iowa State University, and head of the Educational Leadership Organizations and Policy Program. Her research focuses on issues of internal values, religion, and social justice. Welcome, Dr. Marshall.
Thank you. Thanks, Scott, for hosting. And thanks to the EC members or future people who are listening, who probably have other things to do besides listening to a podcast. So thank you.
I'm sure they have nothing better to do. All right. Well, let's begin at the beginning with the first question. First, please tell us about your background and your work as it relates to UCEA's mission and goals.
So UCEA has three missions, really. Schooling and leadership being one, preparation being two, and policy being three. And I think I'm related to all three. I began as a teacher and got interested in policy because these directives would come down from on high and we would be told that we would have to do something, and it would be because the state told us to do it or the superintendent told us to do it. And I thought, where is this coming from? And so I decided I would like to learn a little bit more about educational policy. How does this happen? And so went off to graduate school at Harvard, and after being there, I decided that if you want to make a change in education, the best way to do that is to attack, what Elmore calls the technical core of teaching and learning. And so if you're going to attack teaching and learning, it's a lot easier to start on the front end with new people than it is to get old people to change their minds. So teacher preparation and leadership preparation seemed to me to be the way to enter that. So I've been working in teacher prep first and then in leadership prep since, trying to get the UCEA values of all students, everybody included. And my research agenda, as you mentioned, went from religion and public schooling to inclusive leadership, again, getting that all students factor in, and a little bit about work-life balance, just trying to figure out how to be decent, equitable, whole educators in a climate that doesn't really support any of those things.
All right. You have served for several years as a plenary session representative. Tell us about your engagement in UCEA's governance.
Governance. I've been the Iowa State plenum rep from 2013 to 2018, so 5 years doing that. Have been part of the UCEA Program Design Network over the last couple years as they just launched that from headquarters. So I'm in the recruitment, selection, and assessment NIC, which is helpful. I really like to be in all of them at the same time, but we had to choose one. So I chose recruitment to work on some of those pipeline issues. And though it's not technically a part of UCEA, it started at UCEA. The AERA Leadership for Social Justice SIG really had its home at UCEA. Catherine Marshall saw a need for that, and I've been part of that since it started. Have served there on their awards committee and was the communications chair for a while. That's how I see governance mostly.
All right. Have there been any other ways that you've been engaged in UCEA?
We had an article with Shelby Cosner last year for UCEA Review. That was about program coordinators, which I can talk about a little bit more later. Other ways that I've been involved in the organization, I see UCEA as my professional home, and I'm grateful for it because, like many programs, are just kind of small. And so it gives me the chance to interact with people and find out what they're doing across the country in programs that are similar. So I'm grateful for colleagues and friends there. So have attended the conference regularly, of course, presented there. I've been a Barbara L. Jackson mentor since 2012. I was a Clark Seminar mentor, currently on the EAQ editorial board and the JRLE editorial board. And I'm hoping to get more engaged with the Voices For project. I've been kind of loosely attending their meetings, and I see this year they're talking more about research methods, so hoping to get on board with that this year.
All right. Well, you've already talked about this a little bit, but if you could discuss with us a little more about your scholarship, research projects, teaching, service that can inform the work of UCEA, particularly the work of the executive committee.
Yes. I see the research and teaching really come together. That I teach courses in our leadership preparation program in equity using Colin Capper and Eileen Fratura's equity audits model. I've published on that with Frank Hernandez, some early on with George Theo Harris, looking at course activities which might help change students' minds about marginalized students, about what it means to lead all students, especially around sexual orientation and religion, the less visible markers of
Hmm.
marginalization. You know, I teach in Iowa, which is largely white. Um,
Hmm.
we're really nice people, but we don't have a clue about people who are not white, and we don't have the chance to engage with them very much. And so, trying to teach our students to see equity more broadly, um, helping them to be leaders in their schools, to be leaders in their communities, to address issues of white privilege, to give them tools to face resistance. You know, George's book on the keys to equity, social justice, and school reform is their probably all-time favorite book because it's really practical and gives them specific tips and acknowledges that this is a really, really hard job. And you're going to need some tools to do it, and you're going to face a lot of people who don't like you doing it. So, how are
Hmm.
you going to do that? Service-wise, I'm active at my university. I have some experiences there that I think are relevant. I am the only person, to my knowledge, on my campus to take advantage of the part-time policy tenure track, which means that I did get tenure while being a part-time faculty member, and then went back to full-time once my children were in kindergarten. So because I'm the only person that's done that, I became the campus poster child for work-life balance, which means that I chair the work-life balance advisory committee across the campus, which gives me the opportunity to work with all sorts of different constituents, you know, whether it's extension or staff or faculty from other departments in different stages. And so currently we're working, for example, on figuring out what the real policy is on FMLA for
Uh-huh.
birth of children and care for elders and all sorts of things. You know, that there's some departmental variance, let's say, of how
Hmm.
policies get interpreted. So I am familiar with working with a lot of different people around policy issues, which I think would be useful. I also serve on different boards in my community, and I see that as relevant because, like the EC, it's a group of volunteers who have day jobs doing other things, but who believe strongly in the mission of the organization and are committed to its success. So they work together, even though they are not coming from perhaps a similar perspective initially. They have a common goal. So I am on the library board. I'm on my church's elder board, which sounds very important. That really means we talk about the budget and parking lots and
Right.
such. And I was also a member of I was the program chair for the Religion and Education SIG of AERA, which is not UCA, but I am familiar with what it's like to put together a program and negotiate space and conflicting reviews. So I think that also could be relevant.
All right. Well, I just have one more question, but it's an important one. What are the reasons why you have chosen to run for UCEA Executive Committee? And what's your vision for the future of UCEA?
I was so honored to be asked. I suffer, though, from a bit of imposter syndrome as I consider all the other people that have been on EC and are on EC now. You think, oh my goodness, you know, Michael Dantley or Andrea Rohr or Catherine Lugg or April Peters Hawkins, like good glory, right?
Hmm.
How could I be colleagues with those people? But I would like the opportunity to give back. And I think at UCA is in a time of transition, given that Director Young is leaving. And
Hmm.
she's similar to my library board director at the moment that I'm sitting on the search committee of, because again, a very loved director is leaving the organization. And so the organization has to figure out, what are we going to do now this,
Yes.
that this person is going. And given our national context of other turmoil and shrinking budgets and
Hmm.
educational policies are not always in the interest of students, it seems a good time to try to give back to the organization. I think I have some experiences, working with other people that might help, some subject expertise. I see UCA as supporting, its member institutions, and there have been some great tools like the P&T handbook, the Inspire toolkit are really fabulous. I'm sure there are things that I am missing that the organization needs to do, that wants to do, that I don't know what they want to do, but I would hope that the EC would continue to support the director, whoever he or she may be. Some future work I would like to see done just is a little tiny piece of the program coordinator role. I've been working with Shelly and Kyle Engel and Don Hackman to try to figure out what that role is across UCA institutions. Given that we say preparation programs are important and their design is important, it seems to me odd that we don't look at who's actually leading those programs. And that's what the program coordinator does. And so Kyle and Don and I will actually be presenting on Thursday at a conversational session, and we've invited Casey and Bill to join us to come talk about how the EC or UCA might come up with some professional norms about what incentives might be or what responsibilities might be, which could help perhaps make that a little more consistent and be more supportive of people in that role. I love the state of the organization report that Michelle does every year at the PSR, and I've been watching the trends, about doctoral students going elsewhere besides UCA institutions. And so I would like to change that. I don't really have an idea about how, how to sell ourselves better without being all
Right.
egotistical about how awesome we are, but
Right.
some better way to do that. And then I saw, we did this gap analysis in 2016, the grad students did, of what we do in research and where we should go, but I'm not sure what happened to that and where it's going. So I would like to see that picked up again in terms of which projects are important and where can we be putting our energy as an organization.
All right. Well, thank you for your time and your thoughtful responses, Dr. Marshall.
Well, thank you for interviewing me. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. This interview will be archived on the UCEA YouTube channel. Listeners can access or share the interview at any time. We also encourage listeners to post comments and questions on this interview in the comments on the UCEA YouTube channel. Thank you and goodbye for now.